And
Awesome.
I want to say welcome, everybody. This is Kathleen Gage with the podcast Rockstar Club. And today it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Reverend Dr. Marcia Ledford. And don't let her title intimidate you. This woman is so down to earth and just amazing. From the very first conversation we had, I knew that she was a rock star and is a rock star. So, Reverend Dr. Marcia Ledford, I'll call you Marcia for the sake of this interview. How are you today?
Yes, please do.
How's everything going?
I'm good. I'm very good. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Excellent.
2 weeks, whatever.
You know, I've been looking forward to it also because you joined the podcast Rockstar Club how long ago?
It was mid-February.
Okay, so mid-February, and we're not even in March, and you already have qualified to come on to a Facebook Live. And the criteria for coming on a Facebook Live is that you not only book 3 interviews, you actually deliver 3 interviews, and you just hit the ground running. You got the program on a Friday, I believe it was, a Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
That weekend, you put aside, you went through the entire program. By Monday, you were booking shows. So I'd love to start with you sharing a little bit about yourself. Give us your background, who your market is, and then let's talk about how you've gotten on shows.
Okay, so I have a rather niche place in the public square. I am what is called a political or public theologian, and that sounds big, but really it just means speaking our faith-based beliefs in the public square for greater social justice. So I'm an Episcopal priest, as you can see here, and so I came to being a priest late in my working life. I've been a civil rights attorney in recovery, I might add, for 3 decades. But I'd sensed a call to ordain ministry since I was a teenager. Of course, I wasn't seeing women at the pulpit and at the altar at that time. And I was in a different tradition, so that was even more the case. So finally, after many, many years, I assented to that sense of call I had and went to seminary in my late 40s. And then I did ministry in the Southwest Detroit, where the bulk of our Latino populations reside. And I was absolutely appalled by what I saw. As a person, as a priest, as a Christian, as just a person, I just couldn't believe what we were doing to people in our name as citizens and voters of the United States. So I decided to couple my civil rights experience with my love of the gospel, and I went and got a doctor of ministry in political theology. And so that's what I'm doing now. I don't have a parish that I lead. I am involved in writing, preaching, teaching, speaking about political theology to help particularly progressive-minded Christians get out there and call for a more just society. But what I write about applies to any faith tradition.
Okay. When you say progressive-minded Christians, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, typically, these are Christians who agree that women have gifts of the Spirit and properly should be ordained as well as men. We typically believe that while abortion has a tragic dimension, that women deserve to have proper health care and compassion in those situations. And we believe that LGBT people are children of God, made in the image of God as well, and are must be allowed to marry and to be ordained. And of course, that applies to me as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, actually, my wife and I, we've been together 31 years, and we were able to legally marry. It was about 6 years ago, May 6 years ago. I don't know the exact date. It's interesting because we have like 4 different things that we've done. We did domestic partnership, civil union. I forget what the third one was. By that point, you quit counting. And then the fourth one was, we can do it legally. And, so I appreciate that. And your platform is pretty amazing. Speaking of which, what made you decide to join the podcast Rockstar Club? What appealed to you about it?
I'm in the process of writing my first book, and I'm self-publishing it for numerous reasons. And so it all falls on me to market the book. and to get my message out in general about what I'm doing. So it seemed to me, after listening to some of your other videos before I joined the podcast Rockstar program, that this made a lot of sense, because we can leverage the audiences that others have built to get the message out about what we're doing. The important thing is to find the right niche, and to solicit shows that fall within our subject area. So I just was impressed with you. You've got a really good sense, your presence on your videos and whatnot. Obviously, you have done this a long time. You're very good at what you do. And so I thought, dollar for dollar, $147 seemed very reasonable to me. And I think it's one of the best things that I've done so far in terms of switching gears, pivoting into this advocacy type way to get my message out. And so I started the program. I didn't really intend to do it straight through, but I was just really taken by it. And, you also are very down to earth, even though you have a lot of knowledge. And so I just kept watching them, and I thought, well, I can do this. I think being an extrovert helps. I've also been a professional speaker in terms of being an attorney for a long time. So, I was comfortable with the pitching part of it. I think a lot of people aren't. I did the training. I thought this makes a lot of sense to me. And I really found your Excel spreadsheet, the template, to be extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Because I can't remember everything anymore.
Well, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
I want to address a couple of things that you said to really point out to people why you decided to join and why other people will join the members programs. One is, you said you watched some of my videos, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of putting yourself out there online in a number of different avenues. Don't just think that one podcast show is going to do it for you, because I've had people say that. Well, I tried a couple of podcast shows. I didn't make money. I didn't get a result. And it's like, oh, this is an ongoing process. I've done well over 1,000 interviews, and I still do interviews because there's still the process. And I shoot videos all the time, obviously. You said you're publishing a book and you're self-publishing. Personally, I think that's a great way to go, because you have a lot of control over it. There's advantages and disadvantages to both a traditional publisher and self-published. You talked about pricing, the $147. I really want to emphasize to people who are listening to this after the fact that price is only going until April 7th. I actually sat down and I really looked at what I put in the program, how much effort I put into beyond delivery. And I thought, that was the pandemic pricing. Pricing's going up. So if people are hearing this and you're still able to get it for $147, I say jump on it, because
jump at it.
Oh my gosh. I got a message today from somebody who said, well, I don't know, that's a lot of money. And I thought, if that's a lot of money, I respect that. I do respect that. However, you also have to invest in your business. So congratulations on that.
Yeah. Well, and it's another $150. So why not do it now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that. So I'm curious, first of all, if people have questions, feel free to put your questions in the thread, because we will answer those questions. And we've got right now a few people that are watching, and after the show goes on all the platforms, a lot more people watch it. So what would you say was the biggest takeaway from the training that you got that really helped you to hit the ground running?
Boy, that's hard to say. Well, I thought your information on the places to do research was essential to the success of the program. We've got to know where to look. And so I think that was really super important. Google Podcast, Podit have been my primary sources. I've been a little frustrated with Radio Guest List, because there's a lot of them on there that want you to pay.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I think for the most part, we don't need to pay to be on quality shows. So don't let that stymie you if you're just getting started and you feel like, well, I'm going to have to pay somebody to get on my first couple of shows, because I don't think that's true. And it wasn't true for me. So the resources were really good. and I would say the spreadsheet and the sample podcast sheet, those were
Excellent.
all, and I'm very visually motivated. So,
Okay.
so
Okay.
if you show me a picture, I'm really happy.
I want to address a few of the points that you brought up because as you share things, a lot of times people can let it kind of go over their head, but I really want to bring these home. Podit.net has probably been the best platform for most of the members. So if you're not yet a member of Podit.net, you need to join. And if you're on Clubhouse, I haven't joined Clubhouse yet, but I hear that Podit.net is doing phenomenal things on Clubhouse. They also have a Facebook group. So do yourself a favor. And if you've not joined any platforms yet, join Podit.net. Another thing that you said is about paying. I really want to emphasize that you do not need to pay early on. There comes a point that it may make sense to pay for advertising, sponsorship, or something like that, but initially you don't need to. So I'm glad you brought that up. And also about the one sheet. Not every host will ask you for a one sheet, but as I'm trying to think who shared this. I think more than one member shared this on the Facebook Live, that not every host asks for a one sheet, but when they do and you send them a really nice one sheet, it's nicely designed. It's not too much information. It's just the basic information. They're pretty darned impressed.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, as a host who's interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of people, it's shocking what some people think is professional and what some people think is okay to send a host. I actually had somebody who postponed the interview and they said, well, if you really want to interview me, just go to my website and get my information. And I never responded. I said, we'll pass, because it's like I, as the host, shouldn't have to do a lot of work. You as the guest, if you really want to be on a show, make it easy on the host. So
I missed that part about she wanted to postpone because. So
I had somebody who wanted to postpone at the last minute and said, and I said, well, you haven't sent me your information. And she said, well, we'll postpone it, but if you want my information, go to my website. And as a host, that's not my responsibility. As a host, my job is to give you a great opportunity to showcase your information. And another thing that's really important, I was on Chris Brogan's show the other day, and he said, before we actually went live, he goes, if you try to sell anything, if you go into the 7 steps of X, Y, and Z, he goes, I will cut you off faster than you can imagine. He goes, this is a conversation. So keep that in mind.
Right.
So what other tips let me show people your website. I actually want to take people over to your website. Let me see if I pulled it up okay. Give me a second here, and I'm going to pull up your website and show people where they can go. And if you could give people your web address, go ahead and give people your web address.
Sure. It's Political Theology Matters. You see my logo up there. That's exactly what the website is, .com.
Excellent. And I encourage people to check out what Marcia is doing. This is phenomenal. Right. It's a well-done website. She's got a media room. I haven't even looked at that, so I'm looking at it blindly, but I would assume that there it is. She's got her podcast. Oh, great job. Great job. This is all social proof that Marcia is a low risk to a host, because as a host, we want to make sure that our guests are low risk. So what other tips do you have for people?
A couple things with respect to the podcast sheet. Because I'm at the intersection of theology and politics, because a lot of the work that I do is to teach about how the First Amendment protects us in our faith-based advocacy, because people are confused about the separation of church and state. So I've got these 2 areas that are, I would say, equal, and sometimes maybe a little bit in competition. Political show is not going to want to get into a lot of theology, for example. So I've created a podcast sheet that is for the political types of shows that I'm doing. So now I have I'm going to have probably 3 or 4 different sheets depending on how I'm pitching. I want to be sure and let them know that I'm going to talk about things that will be of interest to their audience. And I also added a line that says, I'm happy to customize a topic that will help your audience within my discipline. So I'm trying to make sure that they realize I am speaking to help them and help their audience.
Excellent. Excellent.
Versus just to spit out my message.
That is such a great tip about customizing and having a few different speaker sheets, because depending on the type of show you're on, one topic that you talk on may not have anything to do with the topic of the show. So it's kind of like when somebody is going to close business as a consultant, if we're closing business, and a client says, let's say it's a health and nutrition consultant. And the client says, well, I'm really most concerned about energy. That's what I want. I want more energy. And if we start talking about organizing the kitchen and not about energy, we've missed the mark. So you really want to make sure that you're hitting the mark. And I love that tip. So have a few different sheets if you talk on different topics, and be willing to customize it for the show, because you're right. It's about the show. It's about the host. It's mostly about the audience. That's what the host is most concerned with. Because when the host has people saying, I love the guests that you bring on, I listen to your show because of the guests, that means that the host is hitting the mark. What other tips do you have for people? And I want to encourage members, go ahead and post your questions, and Marcia will take time to answer the questions. So go ahead.
Be prepared for some of your hosts to tell you that the show isn't going to drop for a couple of months. I was really taken aback by that. That seems like a really long time. Most of the time I've gotten my permalink to put up within a couple of weeks of the show. So, and they, some of them are doing this as a side gig, and they're super, super busy, and they get to it when they can. So you have to be patient, and that's fine. I understand that. So when we were just looking at my media page, I've got 3 that I haven't posted yet because I don't have the links.
Okay.
So that's going to happen. You're always going to have, a lag in what you've done and what's up there. Your list is probably never going to be complete because you've got one in the pipe somewhere.
Good point.
Also, I went through a little period there where I was pitching a lot and I wasn't getting anything. And that made me a little hyper. But then I just kept pitching. And then in the last several days, I've scheduled several. So I've scheduled my first international show, which is tomorrow morning.
Nice.
A woman that has a show about the ethical evolution, I believe it's called. She's in Australia.
Nice.
So that was fun getting that scheduled.
Okay.
With the big time change. So just keep pitching.
Okay.
Don't give up. And it's like Kathleen said, this is the long ball. This is the long game.
Thank you for that. And I want to give you some advice that you probably give people that come to you for counsel. Let go and let God. Because it's like all we can do is the footwork. The outcome is none of our business at this point. If we're sincere about the footwork, then we will get results. And we do have a few questions that I would love to have you answer. Let's see. Thomas said, Kathleen gave me great advice some time ago about 2 separate distinct one sheets, and I did that on my website. It was great advice. Honey says, do you use a speaker sheet program or do it yourself? And before you answer that, Marcia, honey, I want to tell you, inside the program, there's a template that basically you fill in the blanks and you turn it into a PDF, make sure that it's all aligned right, and you've got yourself a speaker one sheet. Marcia, what do you do?
We used the template that you sent to us in PowerPoint, and my webmaster did it. She has excellent graphic design skills.
Wonderful.
And she loves doing stuff like that. So I'm quite lucky in that way. So she did it, and she has prepared all of the varying ones now too.
Okay.
Because she's got the template, and we just talk about what needs to go in each one, and boom.
Once you have the template, it's pretty easy. I'm working with a private client who needed a one sheet, and she had her bio, she had her topic, she had a few sample questions, a headshot, and I actually said, I'll send you the template. It took me, seriously, maybe all of 10 minutes to fill in the blanks, send it to her and say, okay, here's your draft. Now go through it with a fine-tooth comb. But it really didn't take long once you have the copy for it. Now, the copy is what takes the greatest amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what other tips do you have, Marcia, for people who maybe they've bought the program, but they're sitting on the fence? They haven't done a darn thing. They haven't even gone into module 1. What do you say to that?
I say send an email or a message or whatever to Kathleen and promise her you're going to watch the first 3 modules within a certain date.
I love that.
So make a SMART goal that's specific and measurable and achievable, and I don't know, what are the other 2? Timely and R, whatever. So, just promise her you're going to do it, and give her some feedback maybe after you watch the first 3 and say, hey, this is what I learned. This is what I'm excited about.
Excellent.
And just ask her to be, to walk alongside you a little bit and to be a mentor.
Excellent.
And I am pretty sure that when you watch the first 3, you won't need any more accountability. You'll just do it.
That's the thing. It's like the program is designed so that you can actually go at your own pace. And if you're like Marcia, you're going to be a fast start and you're going to go quickly. Thomas has a question, and I'll go ahead and answer this. And then Marcia, you can answer from your perspective and your experience. Do most hosts allow you to mention your website so you can drive traffic to your site?
Yes.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Now, let me answer that first, Marcia, and then I'll get your input. Now, Thomas, when they ask you where, this is what I usually do. 2 or 3 times throughout, I'll go, and yes, this is Kathleen Gage with the podcast Rockstar Club, and right now I'm interviewing Reverend Dr. Marcia Ledford. Marcia, can you give us your web address? And she will give it to me. Go ahead and give it to me. Speak it slowly. Say it twice. Go ahead.
politicaltheologymatters.com. That's politicaltheologymatters.com.
Okay, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to give your social media. You don't need to give your email address, your phone number. All of your information should be on your website. And keep in mind, as people are listening to podcast shows, they're often listening while they're cleaning the house, while they're driving, while they're running, while they're working in the yard, and they don't have time or the bandwidth to remember all the information. So it's best to give them a memorable web address. Speak it slowly and say it twice, because I interview people from UK, from Australia, from India. I've interviewed people from the US, from Canada. And I have to tell you, sometimes it's hard to understand what somebody's saying. They'll go, my web address is blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, could you say that again and speak it real slowly? And I, as the host, shouldn't really have to do that, but that's part of the training I give all of you in the podcast Rockstar Club. Don't think that more is better. Less is better. Slow is better. So, Marcia, what else do you want to add to that?
I also, my email is Marcia at Political Theology Matters, but I bought a short URL that's miptm.com, myptm. Which is nice too, because it's Michigan. That's the postal abbreviation. So, you may, if you've got a super long URL, you may want to buy a shortened URL to give out for your email address, because sometimes people just want your email address. I thought of something else that has really kind of inspired and helped me. I created a new sheet in your template called Big and Awesome. When I see a show, when I'm doing research and I know that I'm not quite there yet, I put it on that sheet, because I don't want to have to remember it, but I want to be able at times to go back there and say, oh yeah, I might be ready for this one.
Wonderful.
So, go for the low-hanging fruit. People with small podcast shows need guests, and sometimes they have the same problem that we do, in that, well, I don't have a lot of experience. Well, they don't have a lot of shows under their belt, and they get in that, they're in danger if people think they may fade if they only have a few shows under their belt. Right. And that's not necessarily the case. And fading means they just kind of go away. They stop. So, help them out. Do some small shows and get some practice. Okay.
Yeah. And I want to read something from Matali. And Matali says, I did the whole course in one day last Saturday. It took me a few hours in total. I've already booked, get this, 9 podcasts. The
That's
course
awesome.
is bite-sized videos, not long, tiresome speeches. There's really no excuse. Just plow through, consume it, and take the action. Thank you, Mitali. And we need to get you booked for a Facebook Live. And I want to remind people who are not members of the podcast Rockstar Club, you can join by going to powerupforprofits.com/podcast Rockstar. Real simple. powerupforprofits.com/podcast Rockstar. Now, you're seeing Marcia right now because Marcia qualified to be on a Facebook Live. I do a lot of promotions of these episodes for a couple of reasons. Let me be very transparent. I do it because it encourages members to go out and get the podcast interviews. You have to get at least 3 interviews booked and delivered before you're on a Facebook Live. The reason I also do it is when you're seeing social proof that this program works, guess what? You're probably going to join. I'm in the business of selling my programs. That's what I do. I create great value. And when I can give you social proof, but it's like hanging a nice reward for people who do the work. And Marcia's done the work. There's been quite a few members who have done the work, and I encourage you, go out, do the work. So what else can you advise people, Marcia?
Well, I know we just welcomed Mitali.
Yes.
That was just a couple days ago, right?
Yes. And she's booked 9 already. I mean, crazy. I love it. I love it.
Good on you. That's amazing. I'm really happy for you. I guess I would say have some faith in yourself and what your message is. You know?
Okay.
I really do believe that we've all got unique skills and abilities and knowledge that we can share that will make a lasting, important contribution to society. And so this is your opportunity to do that in a way that's actually quite fun. I like being a guest. I like being interviewed and being challenged with important questions. And it's a great opportunity for you as well.
Excellent. And I really appreciate what you just said about get your message out there, because the reality is every member has something that's important. It's your passion, it's your mission. And if you're not doing all that is humanly possible to get your message out there, you're doing your market a disservice. You could be saving somebody's life. You could be saving their business. You could be saving their sanity. You could be saving the way that they treat their animals, whatever it may be. I know for myself, my big passion is plant-based eating and veganism. And the more I learn about it, the more committed I am to getting my message out. For me to hold back, that's selfish. So thank you for bringing that up, Marcia. And in closing, one more time, I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage with the podcast Rockstar Club. We'll put all the links below of how you can join the club. And I'm talking with the Reverend Dr. Marcia Ledford, who is just an amazing, amazing woman. She's on a mission to help as many people as possible with her purpose and her movement in life. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share?
This has been wonderful. I feel very lucky to have met Kathleen, and I'm excited to be in this group with the rest of you because you inspire me. And let's do it together and hold each other up. I think it's great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody who has been on the live, and for those who are watching the replay, thank you so much for your time and your attention. Go out, do what you're here to do, live large, and live with passion. This is Kathleen Gage with Power Up for Profits and Plant-Based Eating Podcast Show and the podcast Rockstar Club. Have a great, great day. Be blessed.